As entrepreneurs, we all have a reason why we chose to leave our 9 to 5 for an 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. I'm here to capture those stories of why we all hustle and grind for our companies. Jaci Russo, P.C.M. is a CEO and co-founder of brandRUSSO. She is a published author, entrepreneur, and sought-after speaker. She is the architect behind Brand State U and TrainYard Advisors, and co-host of the He Said, She Said Razor Branding podcast. Jaci is a civic leader, mentor, and mother of 4, and is part of the less than 1% of women agencies in the U.S. Jaci, thank you so much for being on the show today. Really appreciate it. Really great to have you here today. And I'm really excited to hear, because for me, I've seen the power of branding and marketing, and we think about, let's think about it this way. What does Coca-Cola and polar bears have to do with anything? But that is a correlation we can see, and it's because of a very powerful brand. And so I really want to talk, I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about branding and your special version of it. So thank you for being on here. Truly appreciate you being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So what I'd like to do first is, we were talking earlier where there's a lot of different brand and marketing companies out there. And what I want to do is allow you a chance here to tell us what your secret sauce is as far as branding, and go into why, how are you different than those other marketing and branding companies? So I would love to hear it in your own words.
Absolutely. Well, it's funny that you brought up Coca-Cola. After college in Louisiana, I moved to Los Angeles and worked for Creative Artists Agency, which had won the Coca-Cola account from a Madison Avenue shop. And so I got to, and I'm going to use air quotes here, work on, which is really code for sit in the room and fetch coffee for the people working on the Coca-Cola account. And so to watch the evolution of the polar bear campaign, to see how West Coast branding was done, was instrumental to my development and growth. And when I moved back to Louisiana and started this agency in 2001, I looked around and there weren't a lot of branding shops. There weren't companies doing that kind of branding here in Louisiana in the South. And so our agency developed along those same lines. We looked at some of the masters that had gone before us, whether it was David Ogilvy or Stan Richards or Shai Day, and those companies did the right things the right way to get the right results. And so in 2005, we trademarked the process we had developed that we call razor branding, because it cuts through the clutter. And it's 4 core principles. Focus who you're really talking to, their demographics, their psychographics, their pain points, all the things that you really need to know about them. And if you lean too much in demographics, which as a media buyer, I get demographics. Demographics are important, but King Charles, Ozzy Osbourne, same person demographically. So should we really rely on demographics? Let's focus on psychographics, the things inside that really make people tick. The second piece we call promise. Why you? What are you promising to them that they can't get somewhere else? How do you do it better? How do you do it differently? What's your point of differentiation? Humans are a herd species. We all blend together in the pack, which is in our DNA. That's where our comfort is. But for business, you got to stand out. Otherwise, you're just going to get lost. So how do you do that? The third element we call connection. And this is where the message really develops. Most people tend to focus on themselves. It's a very me-facing point of messaging. And so here's what my company does. Here's what I do. Here's how I do it. Here's what makes it so great. Me, 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 me. It's a lot of features. There was an evolution to benefits a while back. I tell you, you're not quite done evolving until you get to all you facing. Here's who you are. Here's your challenge. Here's your problem. Here's how we can help you solve it. And then the fourth and final piece is where we call harmony. And that is where all the pieces start to fit together to really connect with that target audience that you're trying to reach. And so that's where you're using digital, social, traditional, all the different tools that are in the toolbox to make sure you're getting enough frequency to really make an impact.
And I think a lot of listeners will understand kind of define your ideal customer, and kind of, I've seen it done to the point where it's like, here's Todd. Todd's 30 years old, has 2 children, this sort of thing, and really get close on demographics. But you're talking about psychographics as well. And I'm kind of curious about this because I think it's something that we haven't looked at. So can you go into a little bit more detail about what that means when you say, Sir Charles and Ozzy Osbourne have the same demographics? What are some of the other parts in psychographics that can be brought in to differentiate and really hone in on your target audience?
Sure. So when we think about, just to really kind of make that line of separation, so demographics is everything on the outside.
Okay.
It's your education, it's your gender, it's your income, it's all the outside surface level stuff.
Mhm.
Psychographics is everything on the inside. It's how you think, it's how you feel, it's what makes you tick. It's how you see the world. It's a shared commonality that's more than skin deep. So it can be a specific challenge. So when I look at in my own business, when companies reach a certain plateau, they've
Mhm.
grown, they've grown, they've grown, they've done all the good, hard things, they're doing it the right way. And then all of a sudden, it just plateaus and they can't figure out why. So they keep doing the things they've been doing, not working. They try to do something different, not working. And so there's a common challenge because that plateau really does not affect by a certain geography or a certain industry or a certain size of business. The plateau hits everybody at some time or another. And you want to keep moving forward, you got to keep growing. So how do you grow through that plateau and keep climbing the mountain? Well, that is a common challenge. That's a psychographic challenge because it really dives into our common pain points and our common fears and our common frustrations. And so now when I develop messaging around that, if you've started to plateau and you want to keep climbing the mountain again, that is going to pique the interest of people and cut through the clutter of the noise for lots of different kinds of companies
Mhm.
because that's a shared problem. So that's where we get into psychographics.
Mhm. And I think it's just like weight loss, where you plateau and you're not going to keep doing the same thing over and over again. You're going to try a different tack and try to see what's going
Correct.
on. Is there anything that you've seen in the past? Because I know there are times when stuff like especially plateaus can hit you, and it's like it seems like it's hit you out of the blue, but really there's actually something else going on in the background, and you've seen it coming. You've seen some indicators. You just haven't. Well, you should have seen some indicators, but you really missed them. I think most of the time we would adapt if we saw the problem coming on. Anything that you see that's a commonality amongst businesses when they start to hit that plateau, like just before, things that they should look at, like is there some sort of an indicator that says you're kind of getting to that point, you need to start looking at something different? Or is it just sort of
Well,
happen and there's not really any way to predict it?
I
What have you
think that if
found?
you're following a strategic brand plan, you'll
Mhm.
start to see, oh, wait, hold on. We've exhausted, we've gone through all these things. Now it's time to get to that next evolution. We can prepare ahead of time and we can be proactive. What I
Mhm.
find most businesses do is they do not have a strategic brand plan. They're very reactive when it comes to their marketing. And I always wonder, like, if you're going to go build a house, are you calling a contractor and saying, I'm ready to build a house, bring the wood? No, you're having planning meetings, you're having discussions, you're hiring professionals like architects and engineers. You're really mapping this all out because you want to measure twice, cut once. But in marketing, we'd rather throw a bunch of money away and then complain about it. So I'm
Mhm.
not really sure why our mindset changes. There's also this belief that it's really easy. And so the newest person on the team gets tapped to do it. You're
Mhm.
new here, go do our marketing. The person who knows the least about you and has the least amount of experience in marketing, you're now trusting your budget to them. It's an entrepreneurial way because we just kind of figure it out. So I
Mhm.
get it,
Mhm.
but it's a challenge. And
Yeah.
so, really, it is about having a plan and then following that plan. And typically, you can work your way through those plateaus much more efficiently and effectively so that they don't even slow you down.
Yeah, because I will, full transparency, tell you, I do not have a brand. I have a brand standard, like I've got specific colors and brand and
Sure.
logos and stuff. That's it.
Yep.
There's not a plan on how I'm going to brand my company. There's not a plan on
Correct.
how I'm going to do it. It's like, hey, I like this shiny object today. I'm going to post this
Correct.
short, and that's about as far as it goes. Because for me,
Correct.
I'd rather be out just going and running my company because I'm really good at what I do. I love what I do. I have a passion for it, and some of this other stuff just sort of is the side of fries to us. It's that side thing that we know we have to do. It's not really fun. It's not sexy. It's not shiny. And we lose it. So talk to us a little bit about kind of what a brand plan is, and what are the parts of it? What's involved inside of it? So that way maybe we can see a blind spot going, hey, I think we need one of these.
Right. Well, one of the first things is target audiences. And what I find a lot of companies get very scared when I start saying target audience segments because they think that means they can't sell to the people they've been selling to.
Mhm.
And it's actually quite the opposite. What it means is you can sell better to
Mhm.
the people you've been selling to those groups that you've been working with. You're going to do better with them. And you can start to stack other new audiences on top of it. But if you do the first part right, you don't even need the second part. And so that's the first thing, is really understanding those target audiences. Oftentimes, I find that entrepreneurs and their sales teams think they know the target audience. Well, what you know are your customers. And those are the people that have already bought in. What you don't know are the people who aren't customers yet, the people who haven't become clients yet. And there's something that's keeping them from that. And if you haven't done the work to figure out what that is, you'll never get them.
Okay. Interesting. Because I think a lot of us I think all of us have read Russell Brunson and his books.
Sure.
Sort of, I think that's our first foray into it. And I've seen some of those processes work well, but I don't think a strategic plan, he talks about his Dream 100. He talks about a bunch of other things. I think you're going much deeper into it. And that's why I wanted to kind of showcase what you're doing. Cause it's, I told you beforehand, I've worked with some folks that are just getting started in marketing. I've worked with some folks that have charged tens of thousands of dollars to do some sort of a brand standard. The thing I like about the folks that are in the higher end of that is that they have a lot more science behind it. I mean, the first time I actually saw a real brand standard and a real brand plan done, we had three key people, and so and so, and his, they went into such detail,
Right.
amazing detail. Here's how you want to, even to the point of what's the feeling that that you evoke from your brand. Are you, funky? Are you serious? Are you,
Right.
I
Well,
really think it's
about it
interesting.
this way.
You don't think about that,
If you think back to the chicken sandwich wars of a few years ago, everybody who had a chicken sandwich was kind of, sniping at each other and promoting their chicken sandwich is better than the other chicken sandwich. Okay. If I look at Popeyes, Wendy's, Chick-fil-A, the three main players in that environment, and I took their logos off of their ads, their TV commercials, their social media posts, can I still tell the difference between what Popeyes is saying, Wendy's is saying, and Chick-fil-A? Can I identify Chick-fil-A? Am I going to confuse a Chick-fil-A message with a Popeyes message? Absolutely not. They have a very distinct voice. My pleasure. I know exactly when I'm hearing from Chick-fil-A versus when I'm hearing from a saucy, sassy Popeyes spokesperson. Very different. And so that means you've really developed who you are. And now the people who like that can be magnetically attracted to it and connect with you. And it becomes a repellent to the people who don't like that, because they're not your people, and that's okay.
And so having a clientele that self-selects is a beautiful thing, because now you're not having to sell to people. Like you said, market segmentation doesn't have to be wrong, doesn't have to be bad. It's just that we're targeting people who really want to, who are going to be easier to sell to because they want to buy from us.
Exactly.
Not broadening the net a little bit. We're getting super targeted. And I like that, you're saying cutting through all the noise, as part of the plan that you have. I love that, because I think that's something that we have. There's a lot of noise out there, like a lot.
So much noise. And to your point about cost, I thought it was kind that you said tens of thousands. I mean, some of these strategic brand plans are hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so I see a lot of startups who think, I can't hire an agency. I can't afford that. I'm just going to figure it out on my own, or skip it. I'll get to it when we get bigger. And that keeps them from getting bigger. And so I, for years, since about 2009 or 10, have been teaching these brand builder courses, and typically in-person based back in the teens. And so we have this really nice training place. And so you could come in and we do the whole thing, and it was great. Well, in 2020, I had to cancel, a couple hundred of those setups. And so then recorded everything and put it online. And so now BrandStateU, like university.com, is exact science, step by step, exactly what you need to know to do it yourself, but not on your own. And so now people can take these online courses, and it will guide them through the process of creating a strategic brand plan if they can't afford to hire an agency to do it for them.
Which I think is wonderful. Because I think that there's one of the things that I like to do is to sort of, I'll show you how to do it with me, do it for me sort of model. I think that sounds like what you're doing as well. It's allowing people to get in that early stage, because it is really important.
Yep.
So I want to pivot for a second, because I want to ask, how did you get into branding? Like, so you had a job in LA, you moved out of there, but what was the sequence of events that made you move from Louisiana to LA? Big difference,
a little bit,
to start branding. And you've worked with some big, like Ogilvy Mather and these other places are not, like Chiat Day, not new people.
Well, it was really a two-parter. So the first part was I was going to go to law school at Stanford.
Okay.
and that got derailed before kind of midway through college. And
Mm.
so all of a sudden I'm not doing that, and now I've got to find a new thing to do. I was bartending. That's how I paid my way through school. And one of my regulars at the bar knew a guy who worked at CAA and said, you should go there. And I went to the library and looked it up because that's what we did before the internet. And so I thought, well, I could do this. This looks awesome. Packed my car and moved to Los Angeles and bartended out there for the 3 or 4 months until I was able to get the job at CAA, and went in to be an agent for actors and actresses, all A-list, top of the line. I mean, the people that I got to work with at that company were just, you would recognize every single name. It was
Mm.
incredible, an amazing experience. Then, at the end of the 90s, when I moved back to Louisiana, there was no comparable job. And so opening the ad agency was the closest thing to what I had been doing out there, because it had been marketing. It had been, being a part of that advertising environment while also working with actors and actresses. So it was a great experience. Then from the opening of the agency came about because I was working in-house. I was a marketing director for a large regional company, and had gotten married and pregnant and had no time off to have a baby. And so my father-in-law at lunch, one Sunday said, nobody gets ahead as a W-2 worker. And I said, I don't know what that means. And he said, well, a W-2. I was like, still don't know what that means. He's like, well, you don't have to be W-2, you could be 1099. I'm like, you're just saying numbers. What do those things mean? And so did a little research and figured out, oh, and I was like, yeah, I'll go out on my own. I'll be a freelance media buyer. I'll have all the free time in the world. I can play tennis. I can hang out with the kids. It's going to be awesome. Which obviously, like every entrepreneur quickly figured out, meant 80-hour weeks and 7 days a week. And
Mm.
there was no free time. There was no tennis. I haven't touched my tennis racket.
Yeah.
But now having founded and running 3 companies and realizing how much I enjoy this accidental entrepreneurial life, it's all good.
I was going to say, do we ever actually really plan to be an entrepreneur? It's sort of like something happened and great, now I've got to figure it out.
Yep. Yep. That's
I don't think we
everybody's
ever
story.
planned to be. For me, I was laid off from a company. I'm like, oh, great. What do I do now? 300 resumes later, and I'm still don't have anything. It's like, okay, I got to pivot.
Yeah. Well, I spent the first 6 months thinking I was going to go get a real job. And
Mhm.
then, kept adding clients, married to a graphic designer who's working for another
Nice.
agency, who says, I have more work for you than I do for my real agency. Can I quit my real agency and just work with you? I think he said for you. He thinks he said with you. Still 25 years later, something we're discussing as to who said what. But it has worked out really well. And so, we bought a building in downtown and we employed 20 something people, and, we're just continuing to grow.
Nice, nice. So it was just one of those things where you were trying to find the job. This wasn't like something where as a kid you just really loved advertising. It was just kind of, let me go find something that's similar, make this work, and kind of make my own path with it.
I mean, I liked advertising. Like, I watched TV shows and movies that had advertising in it. I thought it was cool, and I
Yeah.
I liked the watching ads. I think some really good ads would
Yeah.
touch me emotionally or made me laugh. But no, it was not a career path I intended.
Mhm. Well, I think ads are something that is now so much part of our lives, like the Hershey's Kisses ringing bells, which, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that was Ogilvy that did that one, wasn't it? I think so.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
yeah,
Yeah. So, something that we have seen every single Christmas for, I think that ad was done in the mid 80s, if I remember correctly. So almost 40 years we've been watching the same ad. And it's such a part of our lives that everyone knows exactly what I'm talking about when I say the Hershey's Kisses Bell ad. So,
absolutely.
yeah. So I think it's
It's
always,
like Got Milk. There's all these
yeah, yeah,
iconic campaigns that,
yeah.
I love the effect they have on our pop culture. It's just amazing.
Mhm. Yeah. And an effect they have in our culture is, in general, it's just sort of interesting. For me, I never decided to get into advertising. That wasn't really, I like it. I kind of interested, but was never a passion enough to get into it. But for me, I like looking at how how we can communicate through ads. A lot of times we'll use an ad as a reference for something else. You were saying Popeyes, and the kind of, my ad team seems kind of Popeyes, or my ad seems kind of Chick-fil-A, so we use these other companies as a basis for what we do. And I think it's really a fascinating thing. This is what happens when your mom's a psychologist, is you kind of tend to get inside people's heads. That's why I asked the psychographic question. Yeah, yeah. Stuff like that.
Right.
So, as far as I know, we got into this a little bit, but I always like to kind of make sure we get some bullet points for people that may not understand they have a problem, or might know they have a problem, but aren't quite sure of the solution. I think that's something that we go through as entrepreneurs. Like we said earlier, this is something we just figure it out. What are some things that you see people do besides like not having a brand, not having their brand documented, not having what they're doing for the brand documented? What are some things that new companies really need to focus on as far as brand is concerned? And what are some things that you see companies that not do correctly that can bite them in the future and kind of helping them to stop a problem before it starts? So some advice you can give to a newer company.
The list is long.
Okay.
I think, I mean, obviously it's always going to be for me being proactive, starting out, having a plan. That's super important, but that's an easy answer. The bigger things is I see companies going to AI for their logos and they cannot be trademarked. They are going to end up, that's going to put you in a pickle. So you may save a little money today, but you're going to spend way more money later fixing the problem that you just caused. And look, I'm a big fan of AI. I use it every day. I think it is an incredible tool. To me, it's right up there with the invention of electricity and computers and the internet. Huge fan, but done right. And so I think, to be unethical with it, to not properly vet it, to not put your own human spin on it. There's a lot of places where you could go awry, and your logo obviously can be a big part of that. So the other place where I think people really miss the chance to be better is their audience is too wide. Over and over and over again, we're trying to reach everybody and missing the opportunity to really target, focus, narrow, win. And those are the big ones.
Okay. Awesome. Well, we're getting towards the end. First of all, there is going to be a link in the show description to get access to your courses, so that way people can access those if they would like to. There's also some more links that to start a conversation with you, so they'll be able to find you. One question I ask everyone though: what is one book or podcast that has had a significant impact on your life that you'd like to share with the audience? To hopefully it has an impact on their lives as well.
So the quick and easy answer would be The Brand Gap by Marty Neumeier. It's a great book. It's very smart. It's written for people who don't do this as their job. And so I think it's very easy to understand. My other answer, though, because of the way it changed my life, because that's what you said, is the book we wrote, He Said, She Said, or Raise Your Branding, because it was a game changer for us to have a book. It has been a huge magnet to new business. And it was the smartest way for us, I think, to really be able to share how we work, which has been just such a huge opportunity to do more work for more people.
Especially as a couple working together. I think that's a totally, as entrepreneurs, we have a very different work-life balance than most 9-to-5s do. It's like, what are my hours? 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week.
Correct.
My hours.
10 p.m. Who let you off early?
I know, right?
What? I want that schedule. That's awesome.
And these things people call vacations and
Never heard of it.
Not quite sure what those are.
Never heard of it. That is a lie that TV tells you.
Exactly, right? But, especially, not only do we have this really weird work-life balance that entrepreneurs have, but we're also doing it as a couple, and not ending up on the 11 o'clock news is, I think, really a big deal.
It's an accomplishment every day.
Yeah, exactly. So I love the fact that you guys wrote a book saying, here's our experience, here's what we're doing, here's what we found. I love the fact that that's there. So we'll also have a link to that book in the description as well, so that way people can get a hold of it, because I think it's important.
Thanks. Thanks very much.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jaci, for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate it. It's been a great conversation. I've had a lot of fun. Hopefully you have too. And I really appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Thanks again for joining us on the Hustle and Grind podcast. If you'd like to learn more about Jaci, check out the link in the description.